Hello everyone, welcome back to the baking section. So I want to introduce the few basic tools that we are going to start with. This is an empty stainless bowl which we will be needing it for creaming. This is our scale for measurement. This is also our measuring cup, our measuring spoon. These are the basic measuring tools. This is our butter, which is the part of the major ingredients. This is our spatula. This is our baking powder. We have our sugar. This is our turning stick. We have our flour. So this is what we are going to start with later. I am going to show us how we are going to incorporate our egg, flour, butter, sugar, how we are going to put everything together to achieve our cake proper. So we are first of all going to start with measurement, but I want to say something. The question most beginners ask. Somebody asks, can I measure with the cup even if I don't have the scale? Yes, you can measure with your cup even if you don't have the scale. But the challenges you are going to face with the cup is cup cannot give you accurate like the scale. I believe as a beginner you need to have the scale. The scale is not that expensive. There are some that are even cheaper you can get for, even now you can get it for 3,500 to 4,000. But this particular one is 8,000. But I believe if you want the one that will last, go for the one of 8,000. There are some that are even higher. There are some that are even up to 100,000. But go for the one that can give you what you want as a beginner. So I want every beginner to get a scale. Scale is going to give you accurate measurement to avoid having challenges of some ingredients are higher in measurement than others. So let's get started. This is my empty bowl. I am going to, please, before we on our scale, we place our empty bowl on top of our scale to avoid the scale taking the weight of the bowl. If I on it, for instance, if I on it, the scale will start reading. If I place my bowl, it is going to include the weight of the bowl. The scale is going to capture both the weight of the scale and the weight of the ingredients, so I may not get exactly what I want. To avoid that, I will have to remove my scale, my bowl off the scale, then place my bowl and on my scale. So when I on it, it is not going to be there. For instance, it is now indicating 0. Nothing is inside, is empty. So I want to put in our butter. This is the recipe that we are going to be working with. We are going to drop the recipe on the screen. We have butter. We are going to be working with 500 grams of butter. Okay, we have exactly 500 gram butter. So when we have our 500 gram butter, we drop it. Then we will use sugar. Sugar is going to be 300. So we have exactly 300 gram sugar. Then we add the sugar to our butter. This is where the work starts. But before then, let's get all our ingredients ready so that whenever we are going to be adding, we don't need to come back to start prepping again. So let's have our flour being measured. Okay, this is our flour, 500 500 gram. Yes, we have exactly 500 gram flour. So we are going to be adding our baking powder to the flour. We always mix our dry ingredients. This is the spoon. We have it in 6 different sets. You can get it in any baking shop once you say measuring cup and measuring spoon. We have the biggest one called 1 tablespoon. The next one, half tablespoon, that is half of this big one. Then we have 1 teaspoon. The next to the half, we have half teaspoon. Then we have 1/4 teaspoon, that is quarter of teaspoon, and the last 1/8, which is normally addressed as a pinch. If they say just a pinch a little, you can use this 1/8. So our recipe, we are going to be using teaspoon to measure our baking powder. You can work with any baking powder of your choice, but make sure you go for good ones. The good ones, we have 2 different types of baking powder, not product, please, not product, but the type is double acting and single acting. It's always indicated like this one, as you can see, is double acting. The difference is this double acting. If you are using the double acting, you are not supposed to use exact number of this teaspoon or tablespoon or any measurement that is being given to that recipe, because this one is double acting. The single acting, you can use it for the normal measurement that the recipe it was given for that particular recipe. But for this 500 gram of flour, we are going to be using 3 teaspoons. Level. When measuring, please level. This is how we are going to be using. We have 1, 2, 3. When you add baking powder to it, you can mix the baking powder into the flour. Then we set it aside. Clear our table so that we can start creaming. Why are we doing this? So that we will show any person, you must not have the machine before you can be able to produce cake. Our olden days people were using their hand. Before we start seeing machine, we are using our hands. So we are going to start creaming. You can also, if you want to cream in large quantity, you can double your recipe. But because we are using our hand to mix it, you can add another recipe, that is maybe 1 kg of butter, so that it will be easier for us to cream. So let's get started. We have broken our egg. Roughly we have 10 eggs, which it has given us 500 gram as well. This is 500 gram fresh egg. As you can see, it's very fresh. So whenever you are buying your egg, try and buy fresh egg so that it will avoid you losing some. If the egg have overstayed, sometimes you can see the bad one or the bad one on the process of breaking. Please don't break the egg into the ball at a time. Look for just a smaller ball. Break one at a time. In case if there is any rotten or bad one, you can be able to identify easily so that it will not spoil the ones you have already broken. So let's whisk our egg. This is fake. I'm using a fake to whisk our egg. Okay, once my egg is mixed, I have started getting it. It looks foamy. Once you have gotten it to this stage, then we come back to mixing. This is finally our final arrival of the creaming of the butter and the sugar. As you can see, it can easily drop from our spatula. That is the level. Once you cream, it looks whitish, not like yellow as the original butter was. So once it is easily dropping from the spatula, that shows it's ready. So we can also drop it, set it aside. This is our initial flour that we measure. It's now time to incorporate everything together. So we are going to put some of our egg, then we add some of our flour, and then we turn it gradually. You combine it. Gradually, once that one is mixed, you drop it and add egg, then turn all the flour. I'll still mix it very well, as you can see. At this point, look at how rough the face is. I can also complete out my egg. Then I will start incorporating it. This is vanilla flavor. You can use any flavor of your choice. There is vanilla flavor, there is milk flavor, there is mixed fruit, there is different types of flavor. Depends on what you want. For this one, we are going to be using our same teaspoon we use in measuring baking powder, 1 teaspoon. So we are going to be adding 2 teaspoons of flavor into the batter. Please use good flavors. Please, these are food that we are going to be eating, so let's use good things, because drugs are costly. Everything is costly. So you can now turn it, cream it together. So you can see the face, how it looks like, but it's still remaining small. We need to still cream it a little bit. Okay, this is how it looks like. Then we can set it aside. This is our baking pan. We are going to be using 7-inch baking pan. So but before we use the baking pan. We have to grease inside with butter. We are going to be rubbing butter and dust it with flour. So I used to see some kind of cakes that they will use. We have this pan in different sizes, different shapes, different. There are ones that are smaller than this, there are ones that are bigger than this. You can use any pan of your choice depending on the size of the cake you are baking. So for this one, we are going to be using 7-inch pan, and we are going to use like 2 different pans to achieve this cake. Our cake must not be that tall. If we fold the pan during baking, the inside may not cook well. So if you want your cake to bake well, share it into smaller quantity into a pan, like bake it in 2 inches. When you put like 1.5 inch, it may rise and give you like 2 inch. So no matter how tall you want to make your cake, bake it in batches, please. Thank you. We want to grease our pan now. This is a pastry brush. I just scoop a little butter. This is how we are going to be doing it. You put it every corner of the pan. Make sure you use the pastry brush and rub butter all over the pan. After we might have greased our pan with the butter, we will now dust it with, so that our cakes can easily come out. This is what we are going to be doing. Then any remnant like this, we can now turn it away. Grease. So this is our butter. We want to scoop it into the pan now for baking. This is now a plain vanilla cake. So if we put it like this into our pan, make sure you tap it to remove all the air bubbles inside, so that when it's baked, it's not going to be having much holes. If we want to trim or level our cake, you will be seeing some kind of big holes. So to avoid that one, you need to tap under the pan containing the batter. Then we set it aside. So the remaining one, I'm going to show us how we can add brownie to make a brown cake. Please don't mistake this one for a chocolate cake. This is not chocolate cake, this is brown cake. We're adding just 1 tablespoon. To be mixing our brownie into our butter. If you want it marble cake, you can collect a little in a different pan. You mix the brown, then you turn it into it and just stir it a little. Then you may be having something similar, although this one is almost mixed, something similar, and it will give you a marble cake. Or you put it separately into the same pan, you add the brown, you add the plain, then you may get marble cake. Okay, this is what we have arrived at. If you want to make it darker than this, you can add another 1 tablespoon, making it 2 tablespoons. But me, I prefer it not to be too dark. We may now scoop it into our pan. Maybe for baking. Then we apply the same method. Okay. So our cakes are now ready to take it to the oven. Please, when baking, if we are using oven, depends on the type of oven we are using. If we are using local fabricated oven, we should try and get a thermometer. In our next class, I will be showing us how to use the thermometer. But since we are showing beginners, some may be asking, I don't have money to buy oven. You know, oven is now costly. Even the fabricated one is costly. Then not to talk of the main original or digital, let me say digital oven. So for not because you don't have an oven, that does not mean that you cannot bake cake. No, we can bake cake with our stove and our pot, and that is what we are going to be using right away to bake this cake. We are going to show us how to arrange it into our pot and our stove. Thank you. This is our stove. As you can see, we have on our stove, but please, it should not be too high and let it not be too low. And this is the pot that we are going to be using. This is just a tin tomato because we have used it before. That is why it looks like this. So that you put it inside and place it on the gas a little before we are going to be putting our cake. While it is heating, I want to say something. So please don't be discouraged. Okay, what if I don't have stove? You can also use firewood. But the most important thing you need to know there is don't put the fire too high. The only disadvantage of firewood is you cannot go far, so that you can be arranging the fire little by little. Let it not be too high and let it not be too low. If it is too low, the cake will not bake. Even if it rises, it will fall. It will not be perfect. But when the fire is consistent, your cake is going to bake perfect. Likewise, the stove. If it is too high, it is going to burn the cake. But if it is moderate, it will bake a perfect cake. So let's watch our pot. We have preheat our pot. So this is how we are going to be putting our cake inside. On top of this tin tomato, you place one, you place another one. It's because this pot can carry the two at a time. There is pot that there is a pan that is bigger than this one. You can't put the two together, so you bake one after the other. So it is now ready to bake. We watch. We also check our fire. If you check the under, it is not too high, it is not too low. So our cake is now in the process of baking. So let's wait. Let's give it like 30 minutes. Then we will come back and check to see whether our cake is baking or not. Please, when you put it to bake, you don't open it less than 30 minutes so that it will not fall. We give it like 30 minutes. By then, if you open it, even if you open it, it reduces the heat. The cake may not fall. So let's keep our cake baking. We will come back in 30 minutes time to check how our cake is progressing. Thank you. Come back to this section. This is the section where we are going to be looking at how to mix our icing sugar. This is Let's say get us icing sugar. Let them bring icing sugar. Gelatin. This one is mixed already. So this is the gelatin. This is empty container. This is our measuring cup. I am going to be giving the recipe for the icing sugar. For this 1 kg of icing sugar, we are going to be using, this is how the gelatin looks like, 1 tablespoon of gelatin into the empty container. Then we add 1/4 cup of water. We are going to fill it to the brim. Add it. Then allow it to set a little. While we allow it to set a little, we have our pot on fire. Then we put a little water, not that much, low heat kg that we are going to be using. Then 1 tablespoon of gelatin, 1/2 teaspoon of CMC. The CMC, we are going to sieve the icing sugar into a bowl. I want you people to see how it looks like. This is 1 kg. If you buy, sometimes you can verify using our scale. If you own your scale, you drop it to verify. As we can see, it's 1 kg, though it has a 0.6, but it doesn't mean anything. It may even be the weight of the bag. This is exactly 1 kg. So while our water is, see how our gelatin is becoming. Then this is glucose. We are going to be adding 2 tablespoons of glucose later. So I think our water is ready. Into the water and cover it. Okay, we are going to check on our gelatin inside. See how our gelatin is looking. It has completely melted. It has now become a runny substance. We can now add our glucose to the gelatin. This is how. Keep tablespoon 2. This is how it is going to be looking like. The glucose is gradually melting. Look of the melted gelatin and glucose is. So this is our icing sugar. Like I said, always sieve your icing sugar. It's how to avoid lumps. Icing sugar. Then we will now add CMC. This is CMC. Half teaspoon. Half teaspoon level. We add it to it. Then get cold. You make a well in the center. This is how it is looking like. Then you turn into the so this is what we come up with. Ensure your surface is clean so that you can turn the fondant to the table. Then you now knead the fondant proper. Make sure everything is combined together. While doing this, please make sure you always wash your hand. When using fondant, you can wash your hand even after every activity. When you sip, you can wash your hand. When you put glucose and the rest, you can wash your hand. When you knead like this, after kneading, you can wash your hand. Frequent washing of hand will give you a clean job. So this is our final look. When you have something like this, you can store it in a polythene bag. Make sure it is free from air. You put it inside the container, cover it, then use it after 6 hours so that you can be able to get a better result. I used to get questioned that, Ma, can't I use it immediately after? No, it will not give you a good and smooth result. After you finish like this, you can get any bag or Ziploc, any type of good clean bag. Then you put it inside and seal it, cover it. Then from 6 hours, 10 hours, you can make use of your fondant. So welcome back. We are now here to check our cake to see how our cake is doing. Wow, as you can see, our cake is neatly baked. It's up to us. Please, whenever you are using this one, ensure you have a good wet towel so that you will not burn your hand. You see, this is our cake. We now have our cake baked neatly. You can bake your cake. So we are going to allow it to get cold for like 15 minutes. Then we look for a clean nylon or new nylon, please. Or if you don't have cling film or foil paper, as we know that things are now expensive, you can buy your nylon. Nylon is cheaper than buying cling film or foil paper. If you have a pack of nylon with 300 to 500 naira, you can get it and you may not be able to finish it one time. Once it is a little bit cold like this, you put it just like we tie this one. You tie it up to allow your cake to set so that it will prevent your cake from totally being dried when you want to cover it. So thank you for this beautiful section. We are coming back to this section. This is our 250 gram butter. We are going to be using it to make covering buttercream. We are going to whip it, let it be a little fluffy. Then we add our icing sugar. Add our icing sugar, 250 gram. This one, the recipe is 250 gram butter, 250 gram icing sugar. So the two should be 500 gram. Always sieve your icing sugar, please. This is what we are going to be using to stack our cakes before covering. We are also going to be using it to cover the cake. Okay, I want us to come back to the section of trimming and stacking our cake after we might have mixed our buttercream. This is our cake. We have now removed it from the polythene bag. This is how it is going to be. This bag, that leveling of the butter, slightly you remove. This is those flour and the butter that we use in greasing our pan. So as you can see, the place that have been removed and the ones that is still remaining, there is a little difference. When you remove it like this, you can just place it. Then you use, this is the knife, bread knife or serrated knife. This is a kitchen tool used in either leveling or even cutting bread. So you can level the top of your cake like this. You now remove this one. Once it is level, this is our plumb. I believe this is a popular tool. Bricklayers use it, builders use it, so we are also using it in the cake industry. That is what you will use to know the level of the cake. For instance, as this particular bubble inside will direct you. As I hold it like this, this shows that everything is balanced. A higher place, the bubble shift to the higher place. If it is equal, it stands in the center. So this is how you place it for you to know whether my cake, as you can see, it is showing a little slide to the right hand side. That means my right hand side is still a little bit higher. So I'm going to reduce it. Please, when doing this, make sure you don't chop up your cake. So as you can see, my cake is balanced. So that is how I did to all these three. It's now time for me to stack them together. This is our buttercream. When we cream it, use a smaller container to be collecting so that you will not stain it with the cake crumb in case the buttercream remain. We now pick our second cake and stack it. Then you still collect the buttercream. This is that buttercream that we mix. 250 gram butter, 250 gram icing sugar, 50-50. So I will now pick the other one and drop it on top. As you can see, we have started getting the shape of our cake. So at this moment, we will need to start leveling our cake so that we can get exact. But I will excuse you people small and get our turntable. This is how we have stacked our cake, remaining for us to level it, ready for covering. But before we do that, this is skewer. This is the pack. This is how it is. It depends. There are smaller ones. This is a medium one, bamboo skewer. So what I normally do is I will insert one into the middle. Once I have it like this, I have marked the level, remove it and cut it a little, then insert it back so that it will hold it together. It will not shift anymore. Even if I'm turning it on my turntable, it will not be shifting. So this is the time that I will be leveling my cake with my knife. So please, on the process of doing this, I don't want to over chop my cake, so I use grater. This one comes in different form. This is a smaller one. I will always level it. As a beginner, please try and use something you can be able to use to level your cake. So with this, I can also slightly pick my cake and flip it over the other side so that I will see any place that is not balanced. I level it also. My cake is gradually getting level and set to cover. So after doing this, I will take a pause, move around with my hand. Any side I feel it is slightly bigger or it has scallop, I will mark that side and use my grater to level it. So I can also still flip it over. Please, this should be done gradually. A lot have lost their cakes in doing this. I can also take a pulse and use my this thing to check my cake. As you can see, it is indicating that this place is a little bit higher. Sometimes, please, when working with a plum, make sure your table is also level. Sometimes it may not really be the fault of the cake. Maybe the table or whatever you are keeping it on top is a little bit slanty. As you can see, my cake is almost balanced. Please, little by little, just as if you are sweeping the top. You start from the beginning. Okay, it is showing me that this side is a little bit higher. We can now get a little of our buttercream. Not much. Then get the smoother part. Please, this crumb, as you can see, not the ones that have much lump, those ones that I scrape and sweep so that I can mix it with my butter to crumb coat the cake so that it will level it totally and ready to cover. You can see the consistency. So this is how I'm going to be crumb coating it. If I come across any space or any place that has a hole, I can collect a little, fill it up, then crumb coat the place and move on. We have crumb coat our cake. It's now time for us to cover our cake with fondant, but before then, this tool is very, very important for a beginner. Me, I can roll my fondant and cover it, but to avoid being messed up the fondant, or if you want to get right size so that you don't misuse your fondant, because icing sugar is expensive, you can take a tape, take it around just like a tailor. Here I have measured just like you are measuring somebody. I want to sew cloth. I have something. When you get the measurement, you also take the height so that you will know what you are working with. After you know, if you know you cannot remember, get a piece of paper and a pen, then write it down. So the next thing we are going to be doing, this same thing, that same our buttercream and icing sugar, then we rub it so that it can make the icing sugar cold firm. Please don't put much, too much of everything is bad. Just a little. Concentrate on the base and the top. To the top. And get the top covered with the buttercream as well. Having done this, you set it aside. the little crumb, get your clean towel so we can clean our table to avoid us having crumb of cakes. You sanitize your board a little. I am going to be working with two boards. This is another plain board, so that if I want to flip over the cake, I can transfer it to the other board. So this is our icing sugar. Like I said, please, neatness of the hand is very important. As we can see, this thing is white. If my hand is not that neat enough, it will show in my icing sugar. So this is my fondant. I will knead my fondant again so that I will get a good consistency. This is my rolling pin. This is the medium one. We have the bigger one. This is a fondant knife, a tiny knife that I want to use to cut the knife. This is also a palette knife. You can get it in art shop. It is also used for trimming the fondant. And this one is my smoother. I will use it to smooth the icing sugar from the table to the body of the cake. I can also work with icing sugar powder to put on my table so that my fondant cannot stick to the table. I can also work with to fill it into a pouch bag. I will use it to dust my table. I prefer using the cornstarch than the icing sugar. It gives me a very fine texture. Touch it so that it will not stick to the board. This is, you roll it like this into a sausage. Then as you can see, it is moving freely. It's not getting stuck to the table. If I am using the bigger of this thing, I will make sure the cake is big enough. For a smaller cake like this, I prefer using the medium one. Sometimes even the big cake depends on how the method of the covering. This one, I am using a panel covering method. I will cover the body first, then the top. While doing this, I can be putting it, lift it. Excuse me, let me get scraper. In case of such thing, once it is stuck, you can easily use it to lift it and dust the under. As I'm rolling like this, I can still get down my tape and check that my size. Check the length, check body, and keep my tape aside. I can also use my smoother. My smoother will help me to balance it. remove the excess before using it to cover the cake. So this is shortening. It's vegetable shortening. It's white fat. You can get it a little to rub, but please don't use this during rainy season, because the weather is a little bit dry, to avoid my fondant from being dried and having a kind of elephant skin, that is a crack on the fondant. After I have smoothed it like this, I can roll it a little bit. That may take closer. This is how we're going to be doing. I will now use my smoother to hold the two bases, and use my smoother to press off and cut off the excess, and a little water, but this one I put water inside so that it will help me dispense the water and touch the edge a little. This is what we are going to be doing. I'm going to turn it so you people can see it. You can also use my knife to trim off the excess. You also trim the excess at the base, but don't trim it completely so that it will not show off the base of the cake. And trim it and remain a little as we smooth the cake. While smoothing, you pin down the edge. So we are now moving down to the top before we can smooth it totally. We're going them together. Still remove it. As you are rolling, you roll into a cycle form because of the top. This time around, we are not rolling it to be long. We are rolling it in a circular form. This is wide enough that can cover our top. We can now place it and use our smoother. So this is the time that we are going to use the second board, you dust the top with the cornstarch so that we can be able to flip our cake. So we lift it and flip it over. Then we keep this one. Use the same smoother and pin the edge down to the other one. Our dowel rod, this is how it looks like. We have thicker ones and bigger ones, depends on the size of the cake you want to stack. So before you stack your cake, you open it. This is smaller cake, I believe I can work with just few, but the heavier the cake is, the bigger or thicker the dowel rod is, and the quantity should be much so that it can be able to carry the weight of the cake in order to avoid cake being crashing. So this is what I will do. I will check the center and dip it into the center. This is a cutter. I will be using it to cut the dowel rod. I will now lift it like this. I will bring it out. I have already marked where I'm going to cut them. Come out slightly above, then I will now cut it. I will still insert it back to see. Yes, I can now work with this one. Then get another one equal size. I'm going to use like 5. It should be able to carry the weight of the cake since it is not too big. So I have my dowel rod evenly cut. I will now insert it just next. This one will help to lift our cake from sinking inside. This one is a little bit higher, so I will trim a little. Even this one, I will trim a little. Then we can now pick our cake and drop. In the case of a wedding cake, there is something called stacking board, a smaller board that I can be able to put on top, so that our cake will stand firm, stack. So we are going to deal with this one, then we put our flour and cover our board. There we go. So we have, I'm going to be using mold to cover my base. This is our mold. This is a kind of flower design mold. We are going to be using it to decorate around our cake. So this is my shortening. As I earlier said, I'm going to use it to grease the mold. And we can now use, this is our icing sugar, to fill up the design. While filling it, try and trim off the excess so that it will give a beautiful design. And now remove this is what we will come up with. Now I will take it, touch it with my pen a little, then put it around my cake. Our sugar flour, we made this from icing sugar, so we are going to use it to decorate our cake. In our next lesson, we are going to be teaching how to make this from icing sugar. This is what we are going to be using to decorate our cakes. Gently. Our gum, this is a popular gum that is being used for tailoring, every art. So this is what we are going to be using to stick our ribbon to the board. I always drop it a little from my hand and rub it to the edge of the board while I keep my ribbon and stick my ribbon to decorate the edge of the board. To avoid the edge of the board, this is the ribbon. This is a popular ribbon. You can get it in tailoring shop, art shop. Then you gum it around the board. Once it finishes, this is my scissors. I'm going to be cutting it. Okay. We now have our board and our cake neatly covered. So I present our simple plain cake. Thank you for this special moment. I really appreciate. Okay. So I'm going to cut so that we can taste our cake. Okay, this is our final finishing for the cake, as you can see.
Actually, really the cake is so amazing. The taste is just brilliant. Miss Musa Gazama,
Yes,
we really want to appreciate your effort
thank you.
for coming to the show and to show us what you are capable of. And I pray the people outside there, they should copy and be able to do something to themselves too.
Yeah.
We really appreciate. As you can see, the cake is just mind-blowing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I really appreciate too.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me in Royal Discovery.
Thank you.
I really appreciate.
You're welcome. Ma'am. You're welcome.
Thank you.